I've always been really close with my sister-in-law Ally and her girls. We are about the same age and had similar struggles with our kids, and would share stories and advice over a glass of wine. A few years ago, my brother Scott collapsed in his yard and died. He was only in his 40s. We were all heartbroken, and I did what I could to be there for Ally, since her kids were still young while struggling through my own grief. We sat and cried together so many times after this happened. A few months had gone by, and I started noticing her being happier and less stressed. I asked what was going on, and she told me that a neighbor of theirs had been really helping her through this, and being there with phone calls and texts, even in the middle of the night when she couldn't sleep. I asked which neighbor, and she looked at me shyly, and said the neighbor's name. Let's call him Lucifer. She told me that he has been coming over, and just sitting with her, and taking her out to eat to get her out of the house, making her feel loved again. I tried to hide my alarm and shock. You see, Lucifer was already married to a woman for 27 years, and they had several kids, some adopted and still living in the house. He was also many, many, many years older than Ally. I saw she was enjoying his attention, but I reminded her that he was married and to please be careful. I felt like they were just pissing all over my brother's memory. It only took a few months before he left his wife of 27 years and filed for divorce. Can you guess why? Apparently, they had started to fall in love with each other, but Ally didn't want to proceed until he was officially divorced because it would be a sin to date a married man. My blood boiled and I saw red. She jumped in with, "But you don't know what he has had to go through in his marriage. His wife has been emotionally abusing him for years." I couldn't say anything because I was so furious that she could be that blind. She is extremely smart, and I never thought she would fall for something so stupid. But I guess grief makes you do stupid things. I asked how her girls felt about it, and she got sad and said they didn't like him, and didn't want him to be around. And then she said, but if they only knew how kind he was, they would change their mind. I kept my thoughts to myself but tried to get her to see the light. A few months later, they were engaged. It was a small service that only a few were invited to. Her girls told us that they were doing everything they could to make him miserable, which is upsetting for Ally. Apparently, after they got married, Lucifer started insisting they call him stepdad or dad. He was also trying to tell them what to do. Remember, it's only been about a year since their father passed away, and they were preteen young teens. I decided there isn't much I could do except keep being there for the girls as much as I could. Every time we got together, Lucifer always seems to be mad at me for something I said or did. One time, Ally told me that he acts that way because he doesn't feel like you really approved of our marriage. Without thinking, I said, I didn't, but followed up with, but it's done, and I'm not going to try to tear you two apart, and will always be here for your kids. I guess Ally told Lucifer because after that he just went into his room every time I came over. Last year her oldest daughter got married, and I came up early to help set up for the wedding, since they were doing all the decorations and set up alone. I brought my two boys to help. We got to work as soon as we got there, but things were tense and stressful because apparently a lot had been going wrong all morning. Now, at this time I should mention both my boys are autistic. They are high-functioning but struggle with how to communicate and follow directions. Lucifer kept yelling at them to move it there, and then move it here, and no, you're not doing it right, totally confusing them. My youngest son spoke up and tried to make a suggestion, and Lucifer snapped at him saying, I don't need you to tell me what to do. Just keep your mouth shut and do as I say without talking back. I turned around so fast I caused a dust storm. I was going to say something, but then caught the eye of my sister-in-law who looked mortified, and I decided against it since I didn't want to cause a scene at my niece's wedding. I told the boys to put everything down and we left. Later that evening at the rehearsal, I approached Lucifer and explained that I understand he was under a lot of stress, but he should not have talked to my son that way, because he was just trying to help. Lucifer decided to say, I won't stand for disrespect and he needs to learn to show his elders respect and learn to keep his mouth shut and just do what he is told. I lost it. I started seeing red, but thankfully my sister heard what he said and saw my face. She came over and pulled me away before I opened up a huge can of whoop-a on him. Thankfully, I calmed down and let my niece have her beautiful wedding, but I am so done with this jackass. I have tried for years to put up with him for my sister-in-law's sake. But after how he treated my autistic son, I don't think I can be around him again, but that means losing my relationship with my sister-in-law, and possibly losing my relationship with my other nieces who still live in their house. I don't want my nieces to feel like I abandoned them. Now my sister-in-law is wondering why I haven't come to visit, and wants me to stay with her for a few days. I live in a different state. I'm not sure what to tell her. Update. I finally talked to her. I started in an email giving her an overall view of how I felt on what happened, but she wanted to call. Let me first explain a few things before going into what happened on the call. I am hot-headed, and have said a lot of very hurtful things in my youth while angry that I can never take back. After losing a very dear friend because of my inability to hold my tongue, I promised myself I would never react or speak in anger again. It took years, and although I still struggle with it, I have trained my mouth to shut as soon as I feel angry. I'm explaining this because a lot of people wondered why I didn't say anything to Lucifer after he said what he said to my son. My niece was close by, and I knew if I allowed myself to respond it would be in a raised, angry tone, and once I start, it's hard to stop. When I approached him at the rehearsal dinner, all of our family and my niece's future in-laws were there, and I did not want to embarrass her in front of them. I talked with my sons who are 15 and 18 about it, and explained that what he said was not okay. My youngest son, bless him, even offered to beat him up for me, but I declined since I've always taught them that words and not violence is how to win any fight. My son would have really hurt him since he is 6'2" and strong, and Lucifer is about 5'3", and a flabby old fart. Another thing that people wondered was if Lucifer was abusive to the girls and Ally. I've talked to my two sisters who are even closer to my nieces, and they said that he speaks to them in a very dismissive way and has said things like that to them as well, but nothing beyond that. Apparently, my older niece and Lucifer got into a yelling match just last year for talking to her the same way he talked to my son. My sister-in-law seems to always defend and support him, which pisses all of us off. That also explains why she didn't say anything to Lucifer when he said what he did, even though she was standing right there. You'll have helped me realize that she has done this to herself, and I will not keep making excuses for her. I think this has been going on for so long because no one has spoken up and confronted them out of the fear they will not let us visit the girls anymore. My whole family are peacemakers and hate confrontation of any kind. I'm like that as well, but my patience for that is over. So, we talked. I made sure I stayed calm before calling her. We said our greetings, and then I started telling her how I felt about what he said to my son and how he justified himself when I confronted him. Sister-in-law explained that everyone was stressed that day and was sure he was sorry about it now. I asked if he was there. He was. So I asked to be put on speakerphone so I can ask him directly. She did, and I asked him with sister-in-law there listening if he was sorry for speaking to my son the way he did at the wedding. Lucifer breathed heavily, and with obvious anger and annoyance in his voice, said he already told me that I need to teach my sons better on how to respect their elders and should learn to shut up and do what they are told. Remember how I said I've taught myself to shut my mouth when I get angry? Unfortunately, my month rebelled after years of training and the floodgates were opened. I told that they will show respect to those that deserve it, and what has he done to deserve anyone's respect except abandon his children, abandon his wife, become an adulterer by pursing a piece of arse with money before my brother was cold in his grave. I went on to ask just how long he was lusting after sister-in-law before my brother even died. I said Lucifer has done nothing to deserve any kind of respect because you are a narcissistic, lying, cheating piece of shit that preys on vulnerable, grieving women. At this point, I knew I had lost any chance for reconciliation. He was yelling back, and I heard my sister-in-law trying to calm him down. Sister-in-law told me that if that is how I felt, then we are not welcomed in their home, and hung up. I felt good that I finally said what I've wanted to say for years, but a bit guilty for not keeping my cool. The funny thing was my middle niece, who is 17, now called me about 30 minutes later and said she heard the whole thing and laughed the whole time. She has never liked him and has been the only one that has stood up to his bullying and thought she was the only one that felt that way. I told her that we all felt that way towards him, that haven't said anything because we thought that her mom would cut all ties with us if we did. She said that as soon as she graduates high school, she is never returning and would never cut ties with us because you are my dad's family, and I love you all. Tears welled up in my eyes out of love for her, and guilt that we did not defend them more. My sisters, my nieces, and I are planning a girls' trip next year after she graduates, and I couldn't be happier. As for my sister-in-law, she will have to reach out to me if she wants to reconnect. I know now that I will not lose my nieces, and that is what is important to me. But I want to know, if it was you in this situation, what would you do?